First breath, softer. Second breath, deeper. Third breath and fourth breath, freer and freer. Each breath a new breath, each breath my own, each breath a whisper of a future still unknown. It would be misleading to suggest that I composed this thoughtful poem right after my escape. Oh no. In reality, my state of mind was quite the opposite. I was not thoughtful in the least. To put it mildly, I was a cow gone crazy, giddy and elated. I giggled like a little calf, the way I used to when I was young, and Eddie would tickle my nose with a bird feather. Freedom! I was woozy with it. All my worries? Gone. All my sadness? Gone. Imagine the spectacle. Me in a big forest for the very first time in my life, completely hysterical with joy. And then, well, my feelings shifted. Just like that, giggles turned into guffaws, heavy and loud. They shook my body. They thundered. They echoed around me as if to declare, Audrey is here. Audrey stands proud and defiant, afraid of nothing, afraid of nothing, afraid of... My emotions changed yet again. Laughter suddenly turned to tears. Not full of pain, mind you, or sorrow, but tears of exhaustion, tears of relief. The noose around my neck finally came undone, and I could really breathe again. Mother, I said aloud, I did it. I really did it.
I came on to the cow caper at 5 minutes past midnight. For a reporter like yours truly, I forgot to say Torchy.
Yeah, Torchy.
Torchy human. I came on to the cow caper at 5 minutes past midnight. For a reporter like yours, a story doesn't get much better than Audrey's. But I didn't know it at first because I came late to the party. See, I'm busy chasing leads on the big bank robbery in Metro when I get a call from Tom. Tom? He's the Daily Planet's senior editor. Torchy, he says. Drop the bank heist and get yourself down to Grover's Corners. Double time. We've got a hot scoop and it's melting fast. A hot scoop? Where? Listen, Tom, I yelled back. What kind of lousy hand are you trying to deal me here? Without missing a beat, Tom says he's got a cow story he wants me to cover. So now I'm wondering if Tom has gone soft in the head. What are you, bonkers? Have you flipped your lid? A cow story? That's the wackiest thing I've ever heard. Don't get me wrong about Tom. I love the lug, but I wasn't born yesterday.
Audrey, cow. My time for celebration was over. I needed to get away from the road if I hoped to make this freedom last. Well, I got my first taste of what the forest had in store for me. I'd never walked through brambles and broken branches before. They cut my legs and scraped my belly. And there were so many trees, never-ending trees. I'd only ever rested under one tree, the big oak at Bittersweet Farm, a cool oasis on a hot day. But I'd never been under so many trees at the same time. They were extremely tall with long limbs. It was tiny in comparison. I was tiny in comparison. I felt like one of little girl Elspeth's plastic toy animals that could fit in her palm. I was walking among the legs of giants. To those trees, I was nothing more than a speck, barely worthy of notice.
Torchy, human. So that cow story is getting better odds than a bank robbery in broad daylight? I asked Tom. He tells me that Kent, a junior reporter, was at a place called Connie's Good Times Grill, which just happens to be down at Grover's Corners. It's karaoke night, and Kent starts chatting with a jumpy guy with a few too many root beer floats under his belt. Casey is his name. He's an animal mover, see? The Grim Reaper's delivery boy. He takes cows and pigs to the slaughterhouse to be turned into steaks and cutlets. He's a cow's worst nightmare. But it seems the tables got turned. This luckless goofball tells Kent that he lost a prisoner in transit. That's right. Some cow flew the coop, skipped town, and ditched her date with destiny. Can you believe it? There's a cow in a forest, desperate and running for her life. And come morning, there will be a hunting party hot on her trail. Now that's a story.
Audrey, cow. Yvonne of Bavaria slipped into the forest, never to be seen again. That's how the tale ends. There are no additional chapters, no sequels. In fact, there are no words written down at all. But how I wished it had been otherwise. How reassuring it would have been to learn what Yvonne did afterward. Perhaps I could have used her actions as a blueprint for my own escape. The Perilous Adventures of Yvonne of Bavaria, both a story and a how-to manual for farm animals on the lam. But there wasn't. So I continued on blindly, without any particular direction. The land was hilly, although not high or impossible to climb. I was attracted to any rise because I could see sky peeking between the tree trunks. I craved open space, but it was always an illusion. The hills were no less covered in trees than the lower parts of the forest. What I did begin to notice, though, which proved a beneficial discovery as far as my poor legs and hooves were concerned, were thin lines of beaten down undergrowth that suggested pathways. They must have served a thinner animal than myself, but I was grateful for even that slight comfort.
June, dear, we heard her a long time before we seen her, but we known that whoever it wasn't no forest creature. The way she stomped through them trees, snapping twigs and all, she might just as well holler her location to every kit-ute or coyote or cougar in the neighborhood. I was stumped. We deer had created a fine network of useful trails. Why on earth would you avoid them to bushwhacking instead? Went on for hours. Spooked the youngins, especially Doris.
Audrey, cow. Eventually, the sun began to set, and the darker the forest grew, the clearer I could see that I didn't belong there. How could I ever have imagined that I would fit within those surroundings? How would I survive? I was unsure of what to eat. I noticed half-chewed leaves along the trails from time to time, but the plants were unfamiliar to me. I didn't know how they might affect my digestion, or worse, whether they would poison me. Then the sky grew overcast and the wind picked up. Tree trunks scraped against each other, creaking slow and ominous. Pine cones dropped with the gusts. The ones that fell close startled me, prodding my imagination and quickening my heart. I was terribly afraid. My stomachs were twisted in knots. It was difficult to breathe. And then the rain began. Cold, fat drops. I stood there ankle deep in the underbrush, wet and shivering in the wind, too afraid to lie down, and wanting so badly to be back at Bittersweet Farm, warm in the cowshed, with Eddie and Madge, and, oh, how I missed Mother at night. How I needed her to be close, to reassure me that everything would be okay.